Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for being here to this sixth episode of the program of talks we call Practice and Knowledge Sharing. This is somehow an attempt done by the Future DiverCities project to share some of the practices that we run and we develop in our premises, in our pilots, and more in general also to open the conversation to other organization, experts, practitioners we encountered in our respective journeys and that have something to, let's say, share that can be inspiring also for the other pilot intervention sites of the project. Of course, this is an sort of an internal knowledge sharing meeting that is open for everyone and that then will be published online. So we can also somehow, like ripple marks, try to have a wider effect than just the exchange between us. So if you already listened or so participated to some of the other talks, you know that it's a very compact format where we take one topic, one theme, and then we try to see how this theme is worked and let's say implemented in different contexts. And this time we go very practical with the topic of sensitive mapping and creative data visualization. Okay, so the idea behind the talk is really we will try to delve into how with alternative ways of collecting data and visualizing data, we can engage communities and we can know under a different light our territories, our contexts, and again, our communities. So some guiding questions can be like really to understand how to transform traditional data into accessible and engaging narratives for diverse audiences, how the artistic practices can play a role in shaping the mapping and data visualization methods, and how these alternative mapping methods can really empower communities to contribute actively to the building the narratives about places and spaces. Okay, so today with us we have Mihail Giba from Croatia, Anna Priedola from Liepaja, and Pauline Gorlet de l'Atelier des Chercheurs from France. And we will somehow listen to their stories and their practices to have different perspectives on the topic of mapping and data visualization. And then, of course, there will be also a moment to exchange between us, so even a little final Q&A moment. So I haven't presented myself. I'm Dario Marmo from Lama agency. Lama is not only running the Italian pilot of the project, but is somehow designing and facilitating these knowledge exchange moments. Of course, I'm very, very happy to be here with you today and to have this talk about mapping and data visualization. Let's start. Before we start, let's share also the fact that meanwhile we are continuing producing also some transversal contents that can be useful for all pilots, but also for practitioners in culture-based regeneration in cities and beyond, okay, practices. And there is a new podcast of the series developed by Traina that is available from today on Spotify. And in the chat, you will see the links to access this podcast. It's just to say that there are additional and very interesting contents. And you know that the Traina works more on the nature in cities, feral grounds, they call it. Okay, so how we can cohabit the city together with more than human or non-human actors, and not to take them into consideration when also rethinking our spaces and our interaction with these spaces. So that will be really interesting to listen to. I will in the afternoon listen to it, but now let's go into the presentations, and I give the floor to the first speaker, Michael Giba. And maybe before that, I will let Teresa from Container introduce Michael because they collaborated, of course, in the Zagreb pilot. And maybe this can also be a way to have some insights on what Container is developing within Future DiverCities in Zagreb. So Teresa, the floor is yours, and then you can pass the baton to Michael.
Thank you, Dario. Hello, everybody. My name is Teresa. I'm the director and curator at Container, a curatorial collective from Zagreb that for more than 20 years works on the intersection of art, science, and technology. And as part of Future DiverCities, Container was able to open a new exhibition and performance venue within an old and rundown printing complex called Viesnik in Zagreb, Croatia, that for almost 50 years served as the headquarters of nearly all printed media in not just Zagreb, but also in Croatia. And it also had a printing press. So the venue allowed Container to shift its program activities from a yearly festival program to year-round activities, which are very diverse, from artistic, educational, and discursive events. And this was also the first time that the organization in more than 20 years had the opportunity to manage a venue on its own. So in the last 2 years, the venue has also become a space for gathering of a community of artists, creatives, technical experts, NGO or organization and other members. And the space is also becoming a hub for creativity and interdisciplinary collaboration, and is also open to events organized by other organizations and individuals. Within Future DiverCities, within our program activities, we have been focused on showcasing, producing, interpreting an array of investigative, interdisciplinary and intermedia cultural programs with special emphasis on the topic of bioart, biomedia, and artistic practices that are dealing with living organisms. The biodiversity approach is not literal in the investigation of the site as a biodiverse system, but in bringing high quality European artists dealing with the current biodiversity, interspecies and biomedia topics to the venue, and creating programs that integrate the theme critically into the site and in surroundings. On top of that, we have also been organizing program activities and producing artworks exploring the former printing complex where Container is located and all of its potential. One of these programs was a series of workshops for art students on 3 different subjects that explore the history, present, and future of the Viesnik complex and its surroundings through the lenses of architecture, urbanism, sound, and smell. And one of the workshop leaders was Michael Giba, so I will let him present all the details about this. But just a few words of introduction before he starts. Michael Giba is a multimedia artist who graduated from the Academy of Fine Arts in Split, Croatia, specializing in painting. But he combines traditional and digital techniques and technologies to create multimedia, often interactive installation that describe, document, and question today's society, often with a dose of humor. And he has been a long-time collaborator for Container. So, Michal, I'll give you the floor now.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Dario. Hi, everybody. I'm going to switch now to my presentation. And today, just a second, I'm going to start with my artistic practice in one form of data visualization, artistic form of data visualization. And also I'm going to talk about this workshop of the sensitive mapping that we had at Container. So I'm, as Teresa said, multimedia artist. I finished painting, but I very soon specialized also in electronic image, and all of my works are some kind of installation. So I'm going to show you the ways that I use data and visualize data in my own works. I usually begin all of my works with collecting data, and after that transformation, and in the end some form of visualization. Data collection is a big process of my art production, and it's the longest part of the process of the creating my artworks and projects. But also it's maybe the most creative part, because when I need to transform this data in the visual part, uh, often there is don't reveal data directly to the visitors, but it in the end it requires some kind of interaction with the visitors, of movement or participation in any other form from the audience. So this one piece collects visitors' IP addresses and transform them into dynamic RGB gradients. It's a real-time installation, so when you are in the space, you can use a QR code and be part of the installation. Also, I have another example. This is the exhibition I had in Zagreb, and this central projection is generated from the pre-recorded EEG data of the six participants. And also there is a camera in a space that collects emotional states of the visitors. It captures it via the image. And combining this EEG data and visitor emotions, that changes in real time also this central projection. So this is some other form of the collecting data and visualizing. This is one of my other works, where it's called Archaeology of Labor, and explores worker struggles in Croatia from the independence in the 1990s. And it's using the data from the database that one NGO in Croatia created. It's called Breed. And I had access to this database, and I collected all of the data about the worker struggles in Croatia, and it's converted in some visuals in the exhibition. This is the other view of the exhibition. So there was a lot of interactive data, and you could choose one of the struggles in the database, and then it would start the algorithm that searched the internet for the information about this data and combine it in some kind of visual collages with the data we had in the archive database. There is also another form of the visualization. This is a custom application I made. It's also a spatial installation, and it collected Zagreb Police Department crime data that's published every day, and also about the locations where the crime happened. It collected the real-time weather information about the weather forecast, weather information on the location at that time when the crime happened. And based on the weather forecast for today or tomorrow, it generated crime forecasts for different city neighborhoods in Zagreb. So this is the other form, and one of the last forms. This is one form of mapping data. It's the part of the Comuna Maro project, current project I'm also working on. So we had a boat, the sailing boat, a few weeks ago, that started from Rijeka and went to Slovenia and Italy. And I equipped it with some do-it-yourself electronic devices that collected the data about the sea, like the temperature or humidity. And also the people that were on the boat had the option through the application to upload their diary in the form of the audio materials or photographs. So you had some kind of map that had some scientific data, like the measurement data from the sensors, but also some collective visual diary that it's also mapped on the same map. So this is maybe the closest version that we were making and we are talking about. So it's sensitive mapping. It collects some other informations. It needs collective participation. So it creates some different story in the end that the data would be just by themselves. Okay, so we had this workshop in container. There were workshop was it was in three parts. There were three artists. One of them was me, and we had this. Uh, Different type of specializations. I was leading the visual Viesnik mapping workshop. There was also scent or smell workshop, and there was also a workshop about the sound. So as Teresa said, this is the building. This is just the part of the building. It's quite larger than this. It's called Viesnik. It's built in 1960s. Once upon a time it housed the most influential media institutions in Croatia. Before that, in former Yugoslavia also. It was a powerful symbol of information, and today it's completely empty, almost completely empty. So container moved in that space a few years ago, and we had when we talked about this workshop and about using the new app that was developed in the Future Diversity projects the project, we decided to work on Viesnik as a building and also as a memory, and we choose to do the workshops about the past, the present, and the future of the Viesnik building with the students that came to the workshop. So this was during the workshop. This free group of the students were working separately, but also you could see what the other groups were working on. And the idea was to, in the end, to test this new application about the mapping. So this is the team. This is all of the people, almost all of the people that were in the workshops, in the other groups, and with their leaders. So the sound mapping was led by artist Miodrag Gladovic. Smell or scent mapping was led by Luana Lojic, and visual mapping of Viesnik was my part, so it was led by me. The idea was that maps are a crucial tool for understanding space, and elements found inside of some kind of space, some form of space. The building of the Viesnik, the whole complex, was a space for us that we wanted to map, and in different sensory forms. And all of these people went to the complex. We were there on the location, and the people went around in the places where we should be and where we weren't allowed to go, but they also went to those places too. So it was quite interesting. And with their uh, small researches and in the end some kind of artistic production, we had some result that we put it on the map in this new app. So I'm going to tell you about a little bit about these three groups. So the first group was mapping sound. The idea was to explore Viesnik soundscape. It was exploring and also in the end generated real-time compositions. So they were collecting the sounds with the microphones, specialized microphones around the all location and complex of Viesnik, and after that, in the end, they edited those sounds and put them in the map. They mapped all of the locations where they were shooting the sounds and collecting. Some of them were really quiet, some of them very loud. So it was quite interesting to discover the space or the building in a different way that we usually do. Most of us explore spaces with our eyes visually, but it's quite interesting to go around and explore space just listening to the sounds of the space. As Miodrag also told me there, and he told to the students, every space has different sounds. So it has some ID, it has some identity from the sound it has. Here are some photos from his groups, so you can see the students going around and shooting the sounds, and also in the end editing the sounds. Uh, they were also, yes, in the collecting it inside the building and outside of the building. Here is the other part of the photos. The second group was making a scent map or smell map. It was led by Luana Loic, also artist, and it was the idea first to collect, but also and smell all of the materials that they could change to fragrances, convert it to fragrances with some processes that I'm not very familiar with, but they were doing it, and we could smell it in the end. It was the idea to collect a lot of different materials that have good smell or bad smell, also to map them, where did you find them, and also to develop some kind of the smell map or smell identity of the Viesnik complex. The most interesting part in this part of the workshop was that you cannot put smell online, not in the form of smell. You cannot put it on a map. So it was quite interesting to see the result. In the end, they transformed the smell into the description of the smell, and using some other technologies like artificial intelligence, or also just your writing and ideas. They converted the smell to text, and then text to visuals, or text to speech, or text to sound. So it was very interesting. It is very hard to put the smell in some digital form. It still doesn't, it's not possible. So it was very interesting to see the end results of this part of the workshop. And the third part was visual mapping of the Viesnik building and the complex. So the students had the assignment to go around the complex and to take the photos with their cameras or with smartphones. They first collected a lot of the visual materials. We printed them in the second part of the workshop, and then they separated them into three groups: past, present, and imagined future of the Viesnik building. So they had developed the photo on the photo papers. We printed the real photos. They cut them. They made the different kind of collages and the different kind of the photo installations. Let's call them like that. And for the past, they choose to have archive data, like more textual data, textual photos that they took, like photos of some signs in the Viesni that's quite maybe familiar with the people that could recognize that it's about some industry or some printing factory. And for the present, they have these different collages of the parts of the photos, or just the whole photos. And for the future, they chose to do it also with artificial intelligence. They choose the photos that they wanted to use for the future. They build the future version of Viesnik Tower, and they gave it to the artificial intelligence to convert it in with their input texts. So it was very interesting. So there is a lot of this furniture at that time. It was a lot of furniture around the complex because there was some people that were emptying the building. So they had a lot of material, also the people for the smell, also the people for the sound. It was quite a lot of activity, so we could use a lot of materials. So in all of these groups, in the whole mapping workshop that we had at Viesnik, but also I can say that I see that in my works when I use data, this when you include something else but just data and the classic version of the visualization of data, this type of mapping and visualizations becomes definitely the storytelling. So this sensitive mapping, it starts by involving the people directly, by involving the subjectivity of the peoples with their subjective experiences, but also in the end it builds some kind of narrative rather than just some data visualization. Here are the versions of the final data. I won't show the detailed map because we don't have that much time, but this is the result from the data from the visual workshop. Here is the also version of the scent or smell workshop. They had some video materials in the end. As I said, they also had some of the sound materials. And it was quite interesting to see these stories, and also I can say the emotions they had through this scent collection. And in the end, this is the sound. No, sorry, this is the scent. It's described with words: experienced, digested, removed. So this is the way they described the scent to map it on a digital map, and also it was converted to the audio in the end. So maybe in the short, we could say that traditional mapping, data mapping methods are trying to describe where something is and what is that. But in the difference of the sensitive mapping, where we can explore how it feels to be on that locations and what it means to different people. This is it for me for now. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for this brilliant presentation, Miha. And just maybe I ask to everyone to just keep note of what they would love to ask you, because we will have all Q&A at the end. And
Sure.
also, interestingly enough, you have also shared the tool developed by l'Atelier des Chercheurs. That will be then the third presentation.
Yeah.
In part also will be. So regarding the technical features of that, I guess we'll also have some more details in few minutes. But before that, I just give the floor to Anna Priedola. I would like to say some words about the Liepaja pilot. The pilot in Liepaja with the municipality of Liepaja tries to work on the reactivation and also the reinterpretation of a natural space. There is the beach called Carosta, okay, that was used for many years for military purposes, and so it's not that much human friendly, let's say. So it can be, okay, but it's not perceived as a place really that can be lived by inhabitants, even if it's quite near to the city. Anna, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not that far. So the work that Future DiverCities is doing there is really to try to give new opportunities to that place to be a place where people reconnect with nature, and also in general to be a place where there is a higher accessibility for inhabitants of the area. Okay, and while doing this, the partners of Liepaja collaborated with Anna, that is an artist, okay, and not only, I would say also a cultural mediator, and she works with visual arts at the intersection between visual arts and data viz, I would say. Okay, but she'll present a lot better than me what she does. So Anna, I give you the floor, and yeah, just check if you can share your screen. Yeah, it works. Perfect. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Daria, for the introduction. So I work currently mostly in LEPA 27, European Capital of Culture, where my creative producer, curator of certain projects, also actually related to Karusta, as yeah, this for a long time has been a challenging area of the city, as the inhabitants often report that they feel disconnected for all of the other city, and actually the residents of the other parts of Liepāja sometimes still have this kind of outdated, stigmatized outlook to Karuasta as a dangerous place to visit. But before that, I will introduce my previous work, where I gained education in new media art and digital art, but move more and more away from it to the low-tech solutions, as I work with often in projects that include marginalized groups, groups with disabilities sometimes, in kind of community-based art projects. And one of the recent ones was the Dairy Diaries, where after experiencing this illness in my family, I later came back to the topic to explore it, as I understood in Latvian society. It's really stigmatized. We don't talk about it at all. So together with DOAT, which is a foundation for open society and discussion, and Latvian Contemporary Art Center and its fantastic art mediators, we developed a platform within my visual art exhibition and workshop series for opening discussion about dementia experience and taking care of people who suffer from it. And as I understood, I know so little about this illness. I started to explore and found a lot of data and statistics about it. And but for me personally, it was my grandpa who suffered from dementia, and yeah, it was these very personal associations with the summers on countryside, which I spent together with him. Where there was always all this countryside work and a lot of milk production and also then dairy product creation, and used these dairy products to make actually edible data visualizations, and also installed there for like a lengthy display in the exhibition, to communicate a lot of information, what dementia is, and who suffers most from it, and why. It is, of course, a very unstable medium, and by using it, I actually wanted to communicate that the statistics, also can be biased, and we always must question where it comes from, as here in this pop-up display in a festival organized by DOATS, just this conversation festival in Latvia. One can actually see this statistics that globally around 5% of elderly, which are 65 and above, suffer from dementia, but in Latvia the statistics is only around even less than 2%. And of course, when you look at it on the first view, you see that you believe that, wow, it's such a good statistics, but actually it is due to lack of diagnosis and care for the people suffering from dementia. And to engage larger society, of course, food is a fantastic medium, and we invited people to play with it, although this is also sometimes stigmatized, and the elderly are quite suspicious when I say that we will play with food, especially those who still have experiences from war. And but when they are invited to share the meal, then they suddenly lighten up. But here I provided also some information from the medical part about habits that can yeah, kind of increase the risk of developing dementia, and people were invited to analyze how often, for example, have they smoked last week, and if they maybe have had an injury or something, have they socialized enough, and to kind of make this edible statistics and consume it to really digest the information so it stays with them for a longer time, this idea. And yeah, here are some images from the multisensory play together with elderly, which also according to some doctors' writings and research suggest that really engaging this little motorics helps with preserving good agility of the mind. And here some older work for a pop-up exhibition, also including these multisensory edible visualizations, which are not by the end of the exhibition were not so edible anymore, where I represented the income of average Latvian in comparison with the richest man in Latvia, and it was just very interesting to see how the smaller piles dried out within a couple of days, and the bigger piles developed mold on it and became quite revolting. Which of course transformed a bit and developed the narrative as well, which for me as not a researcher but artist was quite interesting. And from regarding the research in Karosta, you see this quote actually developed by Karosta locals, from Beast to Beauty, which they found as a motto, which should be applied to the project of Future DiverCities, as Karosta has often been associated with the military runes, and they really would want to change the narrative to the beauty of the area's nature. First I want to also just illustrate how large part of the city Karosta district is, and it's very, very green, although it is also included in this economic development zone. And to start actually investigate how these areas, these large areas, should be used in the minds of the local inhabitants. We used very basic maps and including some questions. For example, what do you want to see in what is lacking in Karosta? As here, the children stated that they actually would want to still see everything that the city is basically developing, both the wind farms and these also military history examples, but also some hotels and zoos. Of course, this project does not have the resources to develop a new mini zoo, so we were looking at ways how to engage the locals to create the change, maybe the perception of the area by more cultural activities. And here is a very important map for me, which was pointed by the locals in the garden festival of Karuasta, where I questioned this motto developed by them by comparing the both how they see what is beautiful in Karuasta and what is dangerous. And as you see in these results, it is actually the same places that the locals see both beautiful and also dangerous. So by some further activities, we together with the local coalition, we emphasized the actual beauty of the actual both nature and abandoned infrastructure that is there in the area. And here you see how the area looks. It has both this kind of urban Art Nouveau and Soviet infrastructure, and this protected wet forests, and as well is very dry pine forests next to the beach, which is also a very one would say maybe polluted, but yeah, there's all these blocks of the Soviet, not Soviet, but Russian imperial ruins of the military infrastructure, which is quite dangerous as it's due to coastal erosion falling into the sea. But they give a home for surprising species like bats, for example. And so we focused on this beauty to the ecosystemic services the nature actually gives to people, both the inhabitants and visitors of the area, to emphasize, yes, the attractivity of the nature. And here, for example, illustrator Kristina Martinova illustrated all the different ecosystemic services that the nature is giving, and we invited locals to vote with pine cones, which are more important for them. And actually, first importance was collecting mushrooms, the food services and resource services, and second after that was the culture and inspiration this nature provides. But first it was not so easy to communicate what actually these ecosystemic services are, and we had to treat people together with the artists to showcase what can be taken from the nature and how we can also give back to it, as there was these meals organized in the Karuasta area from the wild cuisine expert Vija Kārkliņa, and we invited sound artists to make a composition together, which multi-speaker composition interplaying with the local sounds. This is Krista Dintere, and together with art students we also did these sensory mapping workshops, focusing on 3 different topics, both the ecosystemic services, the beauty and danger of the area, and as well the sensory aspect, what kind of sensory inputs they feel. And also in these results, although the sound maybe actually was the most impressive format, how the data was collected for the reasons of this presentation, I put the photos, but also here you see this mix of romantic and actually kind of painful, dangerous imagery which the students collected in the area. And to further the discussion with the locals and Liepāja inhabitants, we installed many multisensory pop-up exhibitions around local festivities. For example, these boxes that represented different ecosystems of Karo Uosta, and actually people learned a lot of new words they did not know before, and said they will go and visit it in real life. So it was fun, and yeah, all the laughter hopefully signifies that you know, the stigma around Karo Uosta was a bit broken, and some engagement was fostered. And here we actually fermented the cucumber in different kind of salinity of brines, represented differences of Baltic Sea salinity levels, which I actually did not pay attention before this project, but also the others did not know that it varies quite a lot. And next to Denmark, it's very comparatively salty. It's like 30 grams per liter of salt, and here in Latvia it's like 8 grams, but next to Finland it's almost like a fresh water. And actually the lack of salinity is part of the pollution issues of Latvian Baltic Sea coast. So it was a starter for a lot of also lengthy conversations about the future of the area and how to actually help the nature by reducing the pollution, which is the largest challenge for the area, as Karo Uosta is voted, not voted, but proven to be the most polluted beach of Latvia. Almost every year the measurement is made. And on the other hand, it is really a popular destination actually for these ecosystem service seekers, even if they don't know what it actually is, what they are doing, and how they engage with the area. So thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Anna. That was so interesting, and really, I have a lot of questions personally, but I'm waiting to formulate them. And so maybe I can, I ask everyone to keep the questions for some minutes from now, and we just go with the third and last presentation that is somehow also connected with the first one, as I was saying, from L'Atelier des Chercheurs and Pauline Gorlet. But I will ask to Elisabeth from La Friche Label des Mets to briefly introduce her, also in the context of what La Friche is doing within Future DiverCities. Thanks again, Anna, and hear you in a few minutes.
Hello, thank you, Dario. Hello, everybody. Very interesting presentation so far. It's been incredible. I'm looking forward to the Q&A part. Yeah, I'm very happy to introduce Pauline and Louis, that some of you have already met actually physically in one of our partner meeting of Future DiverCities in Timișoara in 2023. We started collaborating together through one of the work packages of Future DiverCities, which is this sensitive mapping that is part of the project, and that is a really interesting method when we're studying experimentation of regeneration of spaces. One of the first few phases, as all the artists that have spoken so far have explained, is to get to know the space and try and understand it from a sensitive aspect rather than just a geographical classic aspect. So yeah, we did some research to figure out who were the best people to work with for this project, and to cater to the needs also of the partners and of the artists that were gonna take part in all of this. And so we found Louis and Pauline that collaborate on l'Atelier des Chercheurs. And yeah, I'm very happy for them to introduce their work today and to dig a bit deeper on how data visualization is an artistic form of understanding spaces and having a different lecture on the spaces that we surround ourselves with.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, everyone. We're happy to, be back, see also some faces we've met before. We would like to show you a little bit the work that we do at l'Atelier des Chercheurs with Louis, who's here, and Sarah, who couldn't come, but we're three in l'Atelier. And to maybe also try to answer or to address a little bit the questions you proposed to us on how to engage communities. So I'm gonna just share my screen. Do you see the presentation? Yeah, cool.
Yes.
Perfect. So as I mentioned, so that's the three of us, and we're engaged. It's been now, I guess, a bit more than 10 years. We have engaged in creating tools, mainly digital tools, but not only, as you'll see, that revolves around documentation practices, which is very broad, as we've seen in the other presentations as well. So it can be data collection, it can be narratives creation, it can be sensory documentation, or for makers, for example. There's a lot of things to unpack behind documentation. Although one thing along the way we've learned is that there is some power in documentation practices, meaning that we don't see documentation as an end goal to create an archive, but rather, as we've seen, and as I think you're all doing, rather to have an effect when it's actually done. So it's not documentation, again, as an archive, but more as a way to create effects, be it on public inquiries. We'll see how we've done some work around that. It can be to enhance transformative processes, be it institutional practices, be it labor, for example, or in workplaces. Knowledge sharing, of course, this we see a lot with, for example, maker practices, but it can also be around negotiation and also normative or more collective decision making and things like that. So that's what I'm gonna talk about first. Here you see a bunch of stuff we've done, and I'm gonna focus on the first one, the non-digital one, to begin with. So I don't think we've presented that before, but unless we did. Sorry for repeating, but this table is called Cairn. It's actually a table that we have designed with a Fab Lab in Paris. A big place, open place, open to the public. So there's a lot of people coming in and out, and the Fab managers were trying to make sense of what are the activities that people were doing in the lab, and also trying to understand what are so who's coming, but also the values they were sharing. And so we've designed and tried to encode some dimensions of what we were trying to understand and make sense of with the public. And it was actually a way to not conduct, questionnaires as social science can do sometimes, and it's often very boring and very painful to answer them. So we used this table as a way to conduct this questionnaire. But surprisingly, because it was very exploratory at the time, surprisingly what stood out is that instead of just answering the questions as for questionnaire, the people actually would gather around the table and would spend quite a lot of time discussing the categories we chose to display on the table, also trying to make sense of whether they should pick one or the other token, and really explaining what actually they were doing within the space. So it was more like an explicitory tool, and also a way to make sense of, let's say, the ethical foundation of the place, rather than collecting data per se. Of course, also because you cannot really, these are not really robust data in the sense that anyone can play with the table. So you cannot just collect and use the values as data points as you would normally do for questionnaire. But what is interesting with this project is that it became quite famous in the sense that it was a part of a big research effort called data physicalization, and we saw examples before as well, and it's super exciting as a research track, also because then we I think that highlights the aesthetical dimensions of making data, and of maybe also it's a sort of reappropriation of what data practices can look like, it can be useful for. And it's now part of an effort that is called Input Viz. So some researchers are now trying to design and advocate for not only data visualization that show data, but data devices that can, within a space, so in situ, show a landscape by people inputting data themselves. So it's like an ongoing landscape making, if you want. Another project that I wanted to quickly talk about is, as I mentioned, transformative effects of those tools is a tool that we designed with Louis for the UN. And it was a digital tool this time, and the UN was actually trying to help officers better collect data about social media, and mainly social media data, and try to quickly make reports so they could react on vivid crisis situations and make sense of what is talked about on the media, on the social media. And so here we used different methods to visualize. As you can see, we used 6 and later more ways of visualizing those data. And this had, again, it was not only interested in terms of the outcomes and the reports that were done, but also on all the transformations that happened in the workplace, because we had to reorganize a little bit the work processes and workflows, which led to transform how officers actually work and make sense of situations. So this is, again, to highlight how documentation practices or data practices are not only about the outcome, but also really about how it can have a transformative effect on the situations. And I hand it over to Louis for the KD Studio. Continue.
Hello, everyone. So on a lighter note, this was the context where we were called in a place that is called the Studio Théâtre de Vitry, the studio theater, and it's a place where theater companies rehearse and prepare for an upcoming representation that they are currently creating. So they spend 3 to 6 weeks in a big house with a scene and lighting and a lot of material to prepare, to rehearse, to organize, to finish writing the piece. And the place wanted to have a platform to materialize the research that was being made, that was being done. So the idea was to give the tools that the companies would then use for the coming weeks at the beginning, and then when the piece is finished and about to be shown, then they would be able to share what they've explored, their references, the things that they experimented, and how it got built, it was made. So we spent many weeks with different theater companies and seeing how they collected data, if they did, and how they did it, and experimenting small prototypes. And then at the end, we created some kind of furniture with everything that they could need to record what was happening, either with videos, with audio, or with text, or with pictures of their notebooks, or whatever it could be. And then we have this software that materializes everything on timelines. And the aim was really for the company itself to collect and keep track, but also for them to be able to access whatever else was done before and get inspired and have all this contribute to this shared knowledge platform that is really linked to this place and that can be accessed by people that are interested in what it means to research to create a piece by theater companies in a place like that. So this is a few screenshots of the tool, which is derivated from Dudok. So it's basically the same code except for the user interface.
Yeah, but here again, if I can intervene, is also interesting because the tools, as you know, now have spread in different contexts and used by different people. So it started, as we said, in the theater, but then this is an example of a PhD student who was working on something completely different from theater practices. And she used it to actually make sense of the iconography that she needed for her PhD, and found it really useful to be able to explore her corpus with this tool.
This is another one of the of a tool that we've created actually before we started working on the Future DiverCities project. So this is one of the inspiration, and it's a tool called Millefeuille. And here the aim is for maybe Pauline, you can browse the website, but the aim here is to be able to collaboratively build layers and work on a specific neighborhood place. So this is the Ile de Nantes, the island of Nantes, which is in the middle of the city. It's quite a big island, but it's surrounded by the Loire River. And so this was made for a workshop that lasted 2 days, and it started with the basic material is people giving their opinion on the Isle of Nantes. So if you scroll Pauline, all the way to the bottom, you can show some of the drawings that were made by people living inhabitants from this island, and where they give their point of view on their neighborhood, where they go, what they like, how they feel the place they live in. And then over 2 days, other people that didn't create these cartographies or even didn't come from Nantes were invited in trying to understand why people felt the way they felt their neighborhood. So they could collect data which was like atmospheric pollution or sound or light or temperature or basically any cold data that could be gathered. And then afterwards use open data website to, for example, collect where all the restaurants were and try to find relationships or correlations between data and create by stacking information, trying to create some hypothesis and explain why people would understand and feel the way they feel about their environment. So we have videos of people basically using this tool live and projecting at the end of the workshop and saying, if we use this layer and this layer and this layer, like, we can see that there may be a correlation and an explanation why people feel that this neighborhood is less welcoming, less inspiring, less interesting for people. So it could be, for example, road traffic, or it could be the planes over the head, which is quite low in some places in the Ile de Nantes, or it could be the urban environment, which is not really nice to live in, depending on the place. Another example is something so you've experimented with, and we used this as an example of what became Millefeuille. So basically, as a starting point, Millefeuille contributed to developing this feature in the Dudok software, which is still being developed, by the way. I think you don't have the latest version on diversities, but we have to make sure that the content will stay online and maybe update the software so you will get the latest features. But so the aim here is to be able to display either on a real map or on a plan map or even on drawings, if this is what's most expressive, most interesting, but to have mapping features and correlate and try to link testimony or inquiries or the feeling of a place or a situation in the city and link it to positions and environments and try to create, could be some walks in a building, or it could be walks in the neighborhood that are really that makes sense for the people who contributed it. So it's really oriented to positioning video, images, sounds, text, or anything that can help express this this feeling or this way of living in a neighborhood, basically. And as an example, so when we started developing this feature 2 years ago for the Future DiverCities project, we had some ideas about the way it would be used. And since everything is free and open source, this is an example of teachers in France who have used this same feature for a completely different use. So this is a sensory walk created by a teacher and his class in Brittany. And so here, each chapter of the walk is linked to a sensory aspect. So this is a view, taste, touch, hearing, smell, and so each chapter is linked to a place that people have to go to experiment and follow the instructions that have been listed for them. And then at the end, there's a photo gallery of a walk that was made by the students, and the people have to find the places where this picture were captured. And this is basically being used on the computer, but you can also connect with your smartphone and do this as some kind of in situation game, escape game, some kind of a dynamic interactive walk.
Yeah, maybe a last example we wanted to show you is similarly, it uses Dudok as a background, an old version actually of Dudok, and it was used by a collective during COVID who, as you may know, a lot of makers were involved in creating and building either masks or soap and everything. And they wanted to keep a memory of how they organized so quickly, and also to show that it was possible to organize production at scale with maker spaces. So it was also aiming at advocating for more distributed fabrication, as they call it, places to maybe transition toward new models of production. And so they interviewed each other and they created those small narratives, small journal-like narratives in order to keep that memory in Spain and in France. And I found that was a nice also use of Dudok for other purposes, but also engaging in using the same format in order to make sense of the collective and show a collective effort. And I guess, yeah, that's the examples we wanted to share with you, but we are very actually curious to hear also about how you used it in your own projects, and to learn more. And we have quite a lot of questions, I guess, on those projects too. So I hand it back to Dario.
Thank you, Pauline and Louis. This also was very interesting, and it's also interesting, apart from the first cases, the fact that the digital infrastructure, to do all these different things, it's somehow always the same, and it's the user interface that changes from case to case, which, I mean, it's amazing just to see how it can be shaped in different ways and be used for quite different functions, honestly. So yeah, I really enjoyed this presentation too, and I also have questions for you. But before, I would ask to everyone else in the room if there are questions, and of course, feel as part of the audience. So even speakers, please ask questions one to the other. Feel just free to ask. Yeah. I don't know if there are someone that wants to break the ice. Yeah, Elizabeth, please.
Thank you. I wanted to ask Mireille if you could tell us a little bit more about your perception of the space after your work on the sensitive mapping. Like, has it impacted your perception of the space or how you saw it artistically, or was it part of the process for you and it just confirmed maybe certain feelings about the space?
Yeah, I think it changed the perception definitely for all of us that were involved in the workshop, because usually we see this building, this complex, just from the outside. You never have the opportunity to enter the building. So it was the biggest influence had the entrance to the building. So we could see some spaces that you usually don't. And also, of course, you can smell it's print factory. It's old formal print factory, so the smell is very intense in some parts of the building. So it definitely changed. I don't look at the building in the same way that I used to before. Definitely, especially because of the smell.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So now I can go. But really, if there's anyone else, just raise your hand. Okay. Well, first of all, it's a question for Anna, but in the end, it's for everyone. So just also, Michael, Pauline, Louise, feel free to answer to that, because I think it applies to each of you. I see that you have you are quite. I mean, you pay attention to what people see, and somehow you don't want just to harvest, okay, but you really are giving freedom to express somehow, no? But this freedom goes under anyway certain rules, not only for the homogeneity of what will be then gave back as a data visualized, but also somehow to really use the data collection moment as a moment also to guide people on new concepts, no? And the question was for Anna, because it was very interesting for me, all the part on Carosta regarding ecosystemic services, no? So the fact that you have to somehow also introduce to people what do we mean by ecosystemic services, no? So point is, even if it was a way to express freely perception about a space, this freedom need in some cases to be channeled, no? So to, let's say, give boundaries to it in order to have something meaningful coming back, and also then, of course, disseminated, between people. So yeah, but I also see somehow sort of potential conflict in there, no? So channeling the information and giving freedom to people to express themselves, no? So yeah, just I don't know if it's a question, but just how you usually manage that element, and that also somehow relates to the theater example that Louise was talking about, because you said at the beginning that you had an initial moment where you were observing how data were already generated by people doing rehearsal, using the space. No? So again, there, Louise, you had an observation of how data was already there, collected, before giving rules, let's say, of which data were interesting to collect and to organize. So question for everyone, and the question is how you manage the potential conflict between freedom and new ways of expression of people and channeling and giving boundaries to this freedom.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Regarding this Karoast area, it was a bit interesting that even for me it was a new place. I did not know about it before, although I have studied since the first grade already in Liepāja. But still, as the area is large and also quite hard to access, the places municipality introduced were not seen before. And also it was for the other people we invited to the area to explore it, and we actually made several these sensory mapping events, and the first were quite free, and after that we noticed that people actually say that they don't feel so much for sensory input, especially taste and smell, which are, if you look at the hierarchy of senses, these are the ones that are actually often led to the only intimate conversation. So I am not wondering about it that people said, oh, yeah, nothing to feel, like touch or nothing to taste, because it is, although it looks very wild, it is still city territory, and it's not customary to engage with all 5 of your senses in the context of city. So after that we understood we maybe need a little bit to guide and showcase how actually the resources can be used and what are already provided by the non-human agents for humans to enjoy. And after that, yeah, the data and the outcomes and the reports varied a little bit.
Very
But,
interesting.
Maybe I can.
I was
Sorry.
yeah.
But yeah, regarding this freedom and guidance, I sometimes wonder if, you know, it's this total freedom that it's very hard to make one coherent narrative out of it, for, you know, also to communicate and to engage, as you know, we make sense of the chaotic world through stories. And yeah, the stories need some characters, and you know, by providing these characters and these taglines, it is also for the people engaging in the activities easier to focus their attention. Yeah, thanks.
And Luis, you wanted to integrate on that?
Yeah, for another reflections that we had, it's always difficult to impose common formats because most of the time, for example, in the Les Cahiers du Studio and the theater example, a lot of companies already had their own tools, their own workflows and ways of working within themselves, trying to solve questions like what happens when one of them is sick and cannot come to work. So how do we keep this person up to date with what's happening and have this organization? So it was a bit tricky to find some common tool that all the companies could adopt. And in the end, what we did is that as part of the contract that people sign to use the space, they have to take the engagement to try to document a little sufficiently for someone that has no idea what's happening to understand a little bit of the context. So it doesn't have to be lots of information and lots of detail, but it was important for people to at least attempt and try to this methodology, this approach of an opening of what's usually hidden behind closed doors, and nobody has any idea of what's really what it looks like, what's happening. So it was also a way to open up the research and make it accessible to people, to make this more approachable. And also, since we're talking about public money, all of the funds for the tool and for the people in the residency are municipal funds or state funds. It made sense for the people to also get something back, even if the end is also, of course, a theater piece, a representation, but also give a sense of what it means to create, to experiment, to discover, and maybe bring more people in and create some kind of a resource platform for any companies, even ones that have no idea what this place is, to access and discover what's been experimented, and maybe this could be the basis for another creation. So yeah, trying to find new ways of making research and experimenting on this topic.
Maybe just to add up quickly, I think that's actually for me the question in the sense that I see the in between freedom and making rules. It's to me where the transformation can happen. You know, it's because you leave a little bit of margin, but also you have collective negotiation about what matters, and progressively you collectively end up knowing what matters for that group and the evidence, the type of evidence you want to build together in the format that goes with it. So I think that's really this back and forth that is meaningful. Yeah.
And the example of the different layers, I think it was Hildenant that you were sharing before, gives also a visual perception of that, that like different layers, and then if you overlap them, you see what some different perception have in common, so what you can highlight as meaningful for a group. So yeah, I mean, that was very, very inspiring to also see. Thank you. Thanks to the three of you. I think it was, you answered to my initial idea, and I wanted to know more about that, and I agree with what you're saying, Pauline. I think it's very key, that equilibrium there, and it's where generativeness comes out potentially from a mapping work. Maybe we have time for just one last question if there is. Let me check.
Not really
Luca, please.
a question. It's just a remark or thought that I have. Also speaking from our pilot site in Athens and the neighborhood Metaxilio here in Athens, which is pretty precarious neighborhood. So I found it just very interesting to hear and to think of like sensitive mapping as a strategy to kind of counteract stigmatization, similar to what Anna has been saying also for Karosta as a place, because I think in the end it is really about like affect and subjective perception informing like an emotional and personal relationship to a place. So in that sense, it can also like change and redirect maybe an emotional charge of a place. So it's really inspiring to hear about these methods. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Luca. Thank you. So I think our time is almost over. I thank everyone who participated and the four speakers. Okay, because I mean this was so interesting. Remember, in few days this will be online, so you can also share with someone you think might be interested in what has been presented here and want to know more. And last but not least, remember that 1 month from now, usually the third Wednesday of the month, okay, we have another talk. It will be on the role of art in gentrification and in urban renewal processes. Okay, so we completely changed topic, but not completely, because I think some points can be regarding space and how space is conceived and lived can be also linked to what has been said today. So again, thanks everyone, and hear you 1 month from now.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice
Bye.
day.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.